Okay guys, chapter 13 in your A and P, looking at blood. So when you take or actually give blood, they'll put it through a centrifuge, so they'll spin it really fast, or you can put it in a test tube and just leave it. And long as they don't have, they'll have things in it like that'll keep the blood from clotting, so that way you can see it actually separate like this. If they don't have anything in it to prevent it from clotting, then it will become kind of like a sludge. So when you take that tube and you twist it, it'll just kind of fall down to the bottom, and then all the plasma will switch, and you can take it back and forth, and it will slide back and forth. So it does separate. So in the video you've seen where you have plasma, which makes up about 55% of your blood, and the majority of plasma is water. So this is how we can affect our blood volume, is by taking in a lot of water. If you're dehydrated, then you're at risk of clotting, and you're at risk of hypotension because your blood volume is lower. So we can increase it, and we can influence by drinking water, taking in water, or giving patients fluids. You have what's called a buffer coat, so you'll see a little line, a little white line, and that there is where you're going to have white blood cells and platelets. So water, white blood cells, and platelets. There's also gas, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide up in here, electrolytes, so sodium, potassium, calcium, those things are up floating around here because they're lighter. And the heaviest thing is your red blood cells, or your erythrocytes. That's what's sitting down in the bottom. So white blood cells and platelets, and all other formed elements. All those things are considered formed elements. Your plasma is what we consider your extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid. So it's outside the cells. Our cells are here and here. White blood cells, red blood cells. So how do we make blood? How do we form it? We form it in a process called hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis is the formation of red blood cells, and where it takes place is in your red bone marrow. And it's in particular bones that it does it as well, especially in adults. Whoa, about bit the dust. Inside your bones, you have what is called red bone marrow, or you have bone marrow, period. You are considered adults as well as I, so our red bone marrow is not throughout the skeleton. Unlike some of the younger ones we have red bone marrow everywhere. So your young infants that are growing very fast and need a lot of blood, they have red bone marrow everywhere. We do not. We have it in our flat and irregular bones. You need to know that. We have it in flat and irregular bones. So flat would be your scapula. We have red bone marrow there. Turn him around. Our sternum, we have red bone marrow. The cranium, those are flat bones. We have it in there. Even the clavicle is considered a flat bone. Now, irregular bones, pelvis is a big one too. If you've heard of people donating red bone marrow for a loved one to help them with, say, they're going through leukemia and they've actually eradicated their bone marrow, they'll take it from their pelvis, because it's a big, huge, flat bone. So they'll take it from there. Some of the irregular bones that you'll notice are the vertebrae. Those are another place where you'll find some red bone marrow. So in all your other bones, you have what is called yellow bone marrow. So we're going to learn more about our bone marrow when we get into the skeletal system. But remember, red bone marrow is what makes red blood cells, or erythrocytes.
How do they take that out of there?
They aspirate it with a really big needle. Used to be very painful, but it's a better procedure now, quicker. So lymphatic tissue. So red bone marrow makes red blood cells, and then lymphatic tissue makes white blood cells. Lymphatic tissue is going to be your spleen. It makes some white blood cells. You have a thymus that's sitting around the trachea where it branches off. You have a thymus sitting there. It's really large in children below the age of 3, it's really, really big because their immune system is just now growing and maturing, so we need a big thymus. As you get older, we've got a stronger, more mature immune system, so it actually shrinks in size. So that's lymphatic tissue. Take a look at red blood cells and what they look like. We've talked about this back in the tissue lecture that's been a little bit, but they're concave, kind of like donuts. They don't have any organelles, so they don't have any DNA, they don't have any RNA, they don't have a nucleus, and they're very flexible. So they like to bend, and they talked about in the video how it has a really large surface area. When we talk about gas exchange, that large surface area is very important. So it'll carry some oxygen, and then it will also carry carbon dioxide. So it'll go to the tissues, drop off some oxygen, and pick up the waste product carbon dioxide. So if you're looking at a red blood cell, it has millions of what these are called hemoglobin molecules. So these hemoglobin molecules can be broken up into 2 things. One, globins, which are 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 globins on 1 hemoglobin molecule. 1 globin has a heme on each one. Heme is what actually attaches to oxygen. So 1 hemoglobin molecule, remember we have millions in the red blood cell, 1 hemoglobin molecule can carry how many oxygen molecules? Can carry 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It can carry 4 oxygens on that 1 hemoglobin molecule. When you have a pulse ox on your finger and it's giving you a reading of 99 or 100 or 98%, what it's doing is that infrared light's going through that fingernail and to the other sensor, and it's looking at these hemoglobin molecules and looking at how saturated they are with oxygen. So if they're 100% saturated, then that means all these spots on the heme are completely full throughout that red blood cell, which is great. Now, problem is, if you were in a house fire, you know, that's coming up with all of this heating and things, cold weather. If you are in a house fire and there's a lot of carbon monoxide released, then you can still get a pulse ox and it can still read 100% and their lips be blue. And they're not oxygenating. What happens is carbon monoxide, which has how many oxygen molecules? Mono, it only has 1. So instead of O2, which is oxygen that we breathe, it has just an O. So it's carbon monoxide. It has a higher affinity for this spot here. So what that means is it will go in and it will elbow and push out carbon, or push out your oxygen, and it will jump on there. Problem is our tissues do not use carbon monoxide. We only use carbon dioxide to do cellular respiration. So we slowly die. That tissue slowly dies. What is the extracellular matrix of blood? So what's on the outside of the blood? Not in the cells. What fluid was it?
Plasma.
It was plasma. Another question, what type of tissue is blood? That was from like lecture 2 or something.
Oh, isn't it connected?
It is connective tissue. Remember that. Don't forget, blood is connective tissue. We talked early on, I think chapter 1 maybe, about negative feedback mechanism, and you're going to see that throughout the year, different negative feedbacks going on. So with red blood cell cycle, when the kidneys play an important role on detecting blood volume, so how much blood we have as well as blood pressure, because kidneys are very, very stingy and they want a high blood pressure. When we get to talking about the renal system, then you'll see why they want such a high blood pressure. But for now, we'll just say that they kind of rule the roost when it comes to detecting blood levels. So when your oxygen levels drop, the kidneys will actually secrete a hormone. So this is the endocrine system. they'll secrete what's called erythropoietin. Erythropoietin then will travel to the red bone marrow, and it will say, hey, make some red blood cells, some erythrocytes. So blood levels, oxygen drops, kidneys say, whoa, we can't have this. I need some more blood, so they send out erythropoietin. So if you're thinking erythrocytes, erythropoietin would be the one